The Prince and the Pauper. Chapter 1. Two Boys. "500 years ago, two baby boys were born on the same day. They lived in the city of London. One was a rich prince. His name was Edward. He lived in the palace. The other boy was a pauper. His name was Tom. He lived in a small wooden house with his mother, father, grandmother, and two sisters. They all slept in one small room. The children did not have beds and had to sleep on the floor. Tom's father stole things from people. He liked to hit Tom. His mother was a beggar, and Tom helped her. It was a hard life. Tom had one grown-up friend, an old man. He taught Tom to read and write. He told Tom wonderful stories about kings, queens, and princes. These stories made Tom excited, and he started to dream that he was a prince. Tom told his poor friends his dream, but they laughed at him. He didn't care. Tom acted like a prince. He was very good at it. The other children thought he was smart. They acted like his servants, and it was a fun game. At night, the game stopped. Then Tom had to go home, and he was just a poor, hungry boy again. Chapter 2. The Meeting. One day, Tom went looking for food. He walked far from home. He didn't know where he was. He saw many big buildings with big gates. The gates were gold. He saw a guard. Tom was in front of the palace. Many people were there to see the prince. Tom walked to the front of the crowd. His eyes grew big because he could see Prince Edward. The prince looked kind. He was dressed in beautiful clothes. He had many servants around him. Tom pushed his face through the gate. He wanted to get closer. One of the guards grabbed Tom. The guard shouted, "Get away from here, beggar boy!" The crowd laughed at Tom. The prince heard the shouting and ran to the gates. He said, "Open the gates and let him in." The crowd stopped laughing. They shouted, "Long live Prince Edward!" Prince Edward looked at Tom. "I think you are tired and hungry, so come with me." Tom went into the palace with the prince. Chapter 3. A Big Mistake. The prince gave Tom some food to eat. He asked Tom many questions about his life. Tom told him about his family and the many games he played with his friends. "We play at sword fighting a lot. In the summer, we swim in the river," Tom told the prince. "We dance and sing too." The prince had a lonely life. He thought Tom's life sounded fun. Tom was very surprised.
"I would give anything to be dressed in your fine clothes," he said. "I want to be like you." "Then let's change clothes,"
said the prince. So they did. Tom and Edward looked in the mirror. Tom looked like the prince. Edward looked like the pauper. They were surprised. The two boys had the same hair, lips, nose, and eyes.
"We have the same face,"
said Edward.
"You're right,"
said Tom.
"We have the same voice,"
said Edward.
"We do,"
said Tom. The prince saw that Tom's hand was hurt.
"Who did that?"
he asked.
"The guard outside,"
said Tom. The prince was angry. He ran outside wearing Tom's dirty clothes. He shouted at the guard. The guard thought he was Tom and pushed him out of the gate.
"You made trouble for me, boy. Now get away."
"But I am Prince Edward,"
said Edward. Everyone laughed. They did not believe him.
"You're making a big mistake,"
shouted Edward. No one listened. Chapter 4. Tom the Prince. Inside the palace, everyone thought that Tom was the prince. King Henry thought so. The prince's sisters, Princesses Elizabeth and Mary, thought so. His cousin, Lady Jane, thought so. All the great lords and ladies thought so too. So did the servants. When Tom said something strange, they all said, "Poor Prince Edward, he is mad!" Tom was too scared to tell them who he was. He did his best to act like the prince. He made many mistakes. He didn't eat like a prince, or know any of the prince's homework. He didn't know what to say when they asked him questions.
"I forgot the answers,"
he said. He hoped the real Prince Edward would come back soon. Chapter 5. Prince Edward's Adventures. Edward was angry. No one believed that he was the prince. They were mean to him because they thought he was poor. Everywhere he went, he said,
"I am Prince Edward."
People would laugh. He did not look like a prince. He looked like a pauper. They all thought he was mad. The prince was tired, hungry, and scared. He felt lonely in the big city. He walked to the river and over a large bridge. A dirty man grabbed his shirt.
"Come here, Tom. You are a bad boy,"
the man said.
"I am Prince Edward,"
said the prince. The man laughed.
"You are no prince. You are my son, Tom."
The prince had to go with Tom's father. He had to sleep in the small room in the wooden house. The prince told the family,
"I am not Tom. I am Prince Edward."
His mother and sisters cried,
"Poor Tom is mad."
they said. In the morning, the prince ran away. He met a kind man called Sir Miles. He told Sir Miles his story. Sir Miles also thought the boy was mad, but he felt sorry for him. "I will play this game and wait. He will get better," he thought. Sir Miles took Edward home.
"I will look after you, my prince,"
he said. The prince was happy to have a servant. The next morning, Sir Miles went to buy Edward some clean clothes. The prince was sleeping. When Sir Miles came back, Edward was gone. Tom's father had taken him away. Chapter 6. The Real King. Sir Miles looked everywhere for the prince. He found him in a small town outside London. The prince was in trouble. Tom's father and his bad friends stole a pig. The people of the town chased them, so they ran away. They left the pig with Prince Edward. Everyone thought he was the thief. The people took Prince Edward to jail. There, he met many poor people.
"One day, when I am king, I will help them,"
he thought. Sir Miles told the people that Edward was mad. The people let the prince go.
"Take this mad boy back to London,"
they said. Then everyone heard some sad news.
"King Henry is dead. Prince Edward is the new king,"
shouted a man from the palace.
"My father is dead,"
cried the prince. He was very sad.
"Tom is going to take my place. He will be the new king. We must go to London quickly to stop this."
At the palace, Tom was feeling scared.
"I don't want to be king. I miss my family,"
he cried. The next day, there was a big party for the new king. All the lords and ladies of the land were there. Just as they were about to put the king's crown on Tom's head, they heard a shout.
"I am the real king,"
said the voice. It was Prince Edward.
"Yes, he is,"
agreed Tom.
"Please, Prince Edward, come and get your crown. I don't want to be king."
Edward took the crown.
"Long live the king!"
shouted the crowd.
"Thank you for giving me back my crown,"
said Edward to Tom.
"I will look after poor people like you now that I am the king. You will not be a pauper anymore."
Tom was happy. Sir Miles was surprised that Edward was the real king. He was happy too. King Edward was the happiest of all.